What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today we'll be talking about uh, today we'll be talking about the U.S.'s 3-0 win over Mexico. And man, I think this was the most dominant performance the U.S. has had against a top tier team in man a long time since I've been covering the team, to say the least. Just I have to give the credit to B.J. Callahan. He lined the team up in a great way. Did a really good job as coach. I won coach. Anyway, um, I think individually from our players' perspective, we had a couple of amazing performances. Honestly, tactically, we were doing pretty well as well. I mean, we were able to get a hold of the ball a lot. We were playing possession very well. On our opening goal, we even made the thing that we do where we have our midfield drop to the right back position and have some rotation. We were able to get that to work. Tim Weah was able to pick up the ball in the midfield, drive it forward, got the ball into the Mexican area, and Pulisic was able to put away a goal to get the team ahead. And it was not just that one chance. We were the dominant team throughout the game. Pulisic should have had one really early on, and just a really strong performance. I mean, outside of that, we were dealing well without Tyler Adams. I think that our midfield, it took a while to adjust to grow into the game. Musah and McKennie, I think they were playing in roles they weren't completely comfortable in. Musah, especially at the six. But we were able to compensate for not having Tyler Adams. We want him back. It was pretty clear we were missing him, but it was a really strong performance. And going to the individual guys, first of all, I just have to say that BJ Callahan got the lineup completely right. I think the only thing that I would have done is I probably would have started Joe Scally instead of Dest, but guess I'll get my wish on the next game because Dest got a red card. We'll get to that a bit later, but really strong performances throughout the team. Christian Pulisic, we have to start with him. Man, after having a really rough season at Chelsea this year, um, just came out on the field and played great. Picked up 2 goals, was a constant threat, was just getting the better of the Mexican defense. He was just, I'm going to be saying this a lot, but just a different class. I called Mexico a top tier team earlier. I'm not sure if I can say that confidently anymore. Like Pulisic was just doing really well. I mean, just finding his way to get himself some goals. And I feel like whenever I start to doubt Pulisic, I mean, how could you not? He had a terrible season this year. He always turns up with the national team, and that's something you love to see. Hopefully, his club form can start to just turn around. He's obviously leaving Chelsea this summer, so hopefully he lands at a good spot, but really good performance there. Next, got a good shout out to my Crystal Palace man, Chris Richards, proving that he is the best center back that the U.S. has. Should have been a locked-in starter for us since 2020, and I maintain that he's been so good, able to show his stuff off in the air, great physically, and a really good ball-playing defender. Just did such a good job, and this is being rusty like Pulisic. He didn't have the best season. He wasn't playing at all at Crystal Palace. I talked about this earlier today, or yesterday, I guess. It's pretty late, maybe today where you are. But he's been behind Joaquin Anderson, Mark Gahey. He hasn't been playing a lot at Crystal Palace, but man, talent just shines through. And when we have a coach who puts talent on the field, great things can happen. If we get our talent on the field and we have a coach who does that. Then throughout the rest of the team, I thought Jedi Robinson had a very strong defensive performance today. The game kind of devolved towards the end. And after the first half, I kind of lost focus. But Jedi had a pretty good job defensively. He was shutting down the Mexican attack, making a couple of really good stops. And man, unlike the first two guys, he's continuing his good form that he had and really getting to show that off. And good performance there by Jedi today. Then Tim Weah, you have to give a shout out to him. I already mentioned his work on the first goal. Did a good job on the second one, putting a really good cross in for Pulisic to score. And just another guy continuing to show his class. Just always performs with the national team. And man, it just feels like he's undroppable at this point. Then a couple of other performances. I didn't even talk about the guy making his debut, Folarin Balogun. Didn't have the best offensive performance today, but I did like how he's able to drop to the midfield, combine with the team. It wasn't a really strong performance, and honestly, if this was a different striker who wasn't making his debut, I'd probably be a lot more critical of him, but considering it was a debut today, he's been with the team for so little time. I like the chemistry that he showed pretty immediately with this group, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the next game. But our other striker, Ricardo Pepi, who came off the bench, got himself a goal. I mean, the match was kind of devolving towards the end, so not sure you can put too much stake into that. But should be mentioned that Ricardo Pepi did have a good performance while Balogun wasn't at his best. Miles Robinson really solid defensively today. I don't think that he showed off his skill on the ball, and because of that, I'm not sure I'd have him over a Cameron Carter-Vickers once he becomes healthy. But he's still that really good defensive option for us, and I think with the group that we have right now, he should be a starter over Walker Zimmerman, and he earned a starting place in the team. Then we had a couple other, I think the only mixed performances we had were with the next few guys. I forgot to mention Matt Turner. He had one bad giveaway with the ball at his feet, but he didn't have too much to do. And outside of those, when the spotlight was on him at the very end of the game, when those chants kept happening, but get to that later, I guess, too. Then I think Sergino Dest had, as I said before, a mixed performance. Getting red carded at the end, he lost his head. There's no other way to say it. And I think that he was a little bit soft defensively at times during the game. But, man, he's just so good on the ball. He can still cook. Just, like, I don't know, like saucy maybe is the way to describe it. Yeah, that feels kind of lame saying it like that. But just so smooth on the ball. He can really make some good things happen. Big part of that third goal had good passing to Ricardo Pepi, and just a really fun player. But I'm still leaning that Joe Scally should be the starter for this group. But like Dest, he's just a fun guy to watch, and hopefully he gets a move somewhere. I think Union Berlin is where he's been linked to recently. He can get some consistent playing time, really start to turn to a just more complete fullback. Or I've talked about this before. Maybe he follows the Trent Alexander-Arnold path and he starts playing more of a hybrid role in the midfield. I think that he can do that very well. He's certainly good enough on the ball that I think he could step to the midfield, do a good job, and it seems like that's a new position that's coming into the game. We've seen Arsenal do that with Zinchenko. Man City use Rico Lewis in that spot. John Stones steps in there as well. It was a pretty common thing for Philip Lahm to do. And then I mentioned Trent Alexander-Arnold before, so I think that there's a little bit of hope for Sergino Dest in that spot, but I feel like it'd be a little bit too complicated for the national team, and we know that we should be keeping things simple when we're talking about a national team. So I'm not sure that will work out with that, but I think there is some reasons to be excited about Sergino Dest heading into next season. But again, for the national team, I'd prefer Joe Scally to be starting. Then our midfielders, McKennie and Musah, I think that they both grew into the game, but a little bit of growing pains at the start. Musah was being played out of position, and I don't think he was at his best. I'm not going to be too critical of him, but I think that since the World Cup, he really hasn't been putting in great performances. I've been able to say, like, oh, I've liked his defensive work, and I do. I think he does do a good job in that spot. And, he does have, like, a lot of talent, but I think that he does need to, like, put it all together. I think he's probably going to move on from Valencia this summer. Not that he really needs to, but Valencia, they're kind of in disarray right now, so I think he should get out. I mean, he does need to get out because of that. I mean, playing at that level in La Liga, I don't think is bad for him. But because of Valencia's specific situation, he should be leaving. But not the best, but understandable why. McKennie, I probably, he had a couple of good moments though. Really good pass to Spring Tim Weah on that second goal. But especially in the first half, I wasn't liking his performances on the ball. I think that he was giving it away a bit too cheaply. And then he did get a red card in the second half. To be completely honest, I'm not mad at that red card. With Dest, I think he did just kind of lose his head. But with McKennie there, I mean, there was a fight going on. He was sticking up for his teammates. I don't want to say it like this. I don't want to encourage that, but I respect that, I think that he would do it again if you had the choice to. And it sucks that we're going to be missing him, especially with Tyler Adams out. But I'm not mad at that red card, but I think because he did get carded, I don't think you can really call him a good performer today. Then I mentioned the subs. Ricardo Pepi had a good performance. Then Luke De La Torre, Aronson, Zimmerman, when they came on, Joe Scally as well, when they came on the game, as I mentioned before, you can't really judge a game when it devolves into something like that. And with that, we're going to be talk about Mexico a little bit. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but there was just such a gap between us and Mexico this game. Just two different classes of teams. And now I do know that Mexico were missing Lozano, but Canada didn't look this bad without Alphonso Davies, who had a great performance today. He's healthy, which is scary, but into the frying pan for Joe Scally next game. But yeah, this was a rough game to watch for Mexico, and I really hope the storyline coming out of this game isn't what Mexico did, and I'll talk about the chance later. I feel like I have to talk about the chance, but I feel like we shouldn't look past how good of a performance the U.S. had today. So I'm not making about Mexico because we did look, as I mentioned before, probably the best we've done since I started covering this team. I think in terms of a full game performance, I'd put this as our best game. And yeah, just this team looked in disarray. The defense was bad. It was just letting players go. The attack had no bite to it, and the team completely lost its head after it went down 2-0. Like that's not the end of the game. That's a like obviously U.S. in a position to win, but there's that old cliche. It's not true, but it's a cliche. 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer. So a bit disappointed to see how Mexico reacted to that, and man, it speaks to how much better the U.S. have gotten. As I mentioned before, I don't want this to just be about Mexico. Like we've developed so much tactically or technically with our dribbling. We're taking on players so easily. Our defending was solid. The technical ability that we showed to be able to dominate possession in this game. Like, obviously, Mexico, they've got issues right now. Liga MX is having problems with putting through young players, I think. I don't follow it too much, so don't quote me on this, but I think their federation is in a bit of a state of disarray at the moment. And there are issues with Mexico, but this is still a Mexico team. And there were moments when you're watching them, like the first touch they had, a couple of moves they were doing while dribbling. This was still a solid Mexico team, and we crushed them. We've just created such a gulf between us, and we'll have to see about Canada, but between us and Mexico, at least, there's a tier in CONCACAF, and we are above them. And that is a huge achievement for us to have. And honestly, with games like this, I start thinking about, man, maybe we should combine with South America, form one America's federation. I think that would probably help us, and I think it would probably be good for the game. I don't know, just something I'm throwing out there. Then with Mexico, just man, on top of us dominating them, did anybody catch after Ricardo Pepi scored, the kid who was wearing a Mexico bandana and a U.S. shirt? After he scored that, he took off the bandana and started kissing the U.S. shirt. Man, that is going to be an image that we're going to be seeing for a long time. Man, I wish that'd be happening around the country, but we played this game at 10 p.m. on a weeknight, so was it behind a paywall too? I was watching on Paramount. I'm not sure if it was on CBS Sports, but yeah, not the best in that situation, but great to see there. Then for the actual story about Mexico, the team just unraveled. 2 red cards. I mean, the U.S. did have them as well, but Mexico created the game and made it that setting, and yeah, it just was a state of where they're at the moment. They just decided to throw the game basically to, I don't know, make a point to try to hurt some of our guys. They just decided they weren't willing to play with us, and that's a terrible mentality to have. That they just didn't think they were able to keep up, or maybe they got frustrated. I don't know, but it's showing a difference between us and Mexico at the moment that it speaks to how far we've come. And then, man, the chants were really annoying. If you weren't watching the game, Mexico, they have their homophobic chant that they do whenever not whenever, but a lot of times when goalkeepers are taking kicks, and it was happening a lot throughout the game, and it was going ignored. You know, they weren't making a point to talk about it, and then late in the game, the ref had to stop the game, did the first warning. The very next goal kick Turner had, there was another chant, ref did nothing. And then finally there was a third one, and the ref ended the game with 5 minutes left in stoppage time. So, I don't know. The only thing I'd say is just CONCACAF, enforce your rules. You made them. I have a feeling that's going to be like, oh, we didn't actually do anything for the second chant, so they're not getting punished because we just ended the game. Like, you have these rules for a reason. You're displaying the say no to discrimination signs. Take a stand. Do something about this. Because, actually have a punishment. If you're going to have these rules, do it to make a statement. Anyway, so that's it for the game. I think one of the best performances in U.S. history. Again, the story is probably going to be about Mexico just unraveling, but this was a really good performance, top to bottom, really strong throughout the squad, and it should go down as one of the best nights in U.S. history. That's all I got to talk about it. Okay. We got to talk about it. Gregg Berhalter has been rehired as the coach of the U.S. men's national team. This is something that I don't like. Things written down because I want to make sure I say everything. Strictly on the field, I did not like Berhalter as our manager. Some issues that I had was that he was too, static in his tactics, too forced in, making players play a certain way, have them overthinking things, and it's not something that really works in an international game. And I think that it really limited the creativity of the squad. When you're watching the team play today, maybe not even today. I think a couple times under Anthony Hudson, you could see guys like Gio Reyna be able to play kind of freely, and it was just something that was kind of lacked. There wasn't really a creative spark in the U.S. under Gregg Berhalter, and I think that he is not capable of coaching that at this level. And then some other things. Obviously, he has his favorites, which hurt the team. Guys like Aaron Long being called in when he really shouldn't be. Christian Roldan, he's a good prospect, but it's not Jesus Ferreira's time yet. And it hurt us at the World Cup. Come the match against the Netherlands, we were all exhausted because this team just didn't have depth available to it. And it caught up to us. And then speaking of the World Cup, I think that he did a pretty poor job with his in-game management there. In the game against Wales, we went defensive. Despite dominating the ball, we could have had an offensive sub come on. The team didn't need to make a change, but going defensive ended up costing us points. And, selecting Walker Zimmerman over Cameron Carter-Vickers ended up coming back to bite us as well. Then game against England, good performance. I think it was a strong win, or not a win. It was a draw, but it felt like a win because we were able to get a result, get a point against England. But getting a point actually meant nothing if you go back to that game. And we could have tried to go for a win, went more offensively, but we didn't. We were just accepting a draw. And then against Iran, we were again dominating the game, the much better team. Decided to go defensive, and it almost cost a spot in the quarterfinal or in the knockout round. And then against the Netherlands, Berhalter just got outcoached. I'm not going to hold that against him too much because I think Louis van Gaal was probably the best manager at the World Cup this year. He was doing a very good job, but we do need to have a manager who is there to do a really good job and not just we kind of met expectations. We had the most talented team we've ever had, and we just did the same thing we've done in 2014 and 2010. But that was, I guess, the goal. I guess we were satisfied with that. So strictly on the field, I don't think he's fit to be a national team coach. And then there's the off the field stuff. And by off the field stuff, he's him stomping out his girlfriend. I know that a lot of people say, "Oh, that's in the past. We can overlook that." That's a that's a point for me where I struggle to just ignore that. Like, I feel like that's a big deal, and we should care about that. I mean, you can say he was young. This is a young team. Like, are we just going to do nothing? If I was covering the U20 World Cup, we had a lot of good prospects there. If we had a player on that team do the things that he did, would we just ignore it? Would we have those players face no consequences? Because Berhalter had none. I went back and checked. I couldn't find anything that he was suspended from North Carolina or anything. And just personally, I've been not been in a situation, but I had a friend who did something similar to what Berhalter did, and I say had a friend, past tense, because after that I did not associate with that scumbag. And when I look at this team, I think there were some times last year, particularly around, I think the friendlies against Saudi Arabia and Japan, where there was this part of me that was rooting for the team to fail because I felt like that would be a way that things would actually change. That's kind of hard to say, especially because like I'm a big supporter of this team, but there was that voice in the back of my head, and with Berhalter being back with the team, I think that voice is going to be growing louder. So I think I might be reevaluating what I want to do with this channel. And yeah. So overall, looking at the bright side, this was a very good game, fun performance, really strong game, and yeah, peace.